Do you want to fast track your career? Are you looking to progress faster than what your current workplace is telling you can? Are you bored of people telling you that it will take years for you to move up the ladder, that you have to wait until the next year for your annual review, at which point they will tell you how much closer you got to that next bit of progression? Are you bored of having to wait years to go and get promoted and trying to figure out exactly what you need to do to go and get that next tier job? Well, this video is exactly for you. This is exactly what I'm going to be talking about. Let me share a few tips and secrets about how you can actually move up the career ladder fast. Not the kind of stuff that you'll see in other videos by people who have read a book, or by people who have watched a few YouTube videos, or by people who just regurgitate the same stuff. Stuff based on my real personal experience, and I'll share some of that personal experience with you right now. So let's dive right in. Hi guys, Sasha here. Welcome back to this channel. If you're new around here, this channel is all about money. I talk about how to improve your financial well-being, how to manage your money better, and just a lot of really interesting insider stuff about personal finance and the world of various financial products. So first, let me just tell you about my personal career. I'm going to share quite a lot of details. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened in the various different stages, and I'm not doing this to brag. I am not doing this because I want to show off in any way. I'm doing this so that I can explain some of the thinking behind the tips that I'm going to be coming to just a little bit later, but also I want to show you that I am talking from experience. I'm talking from somebody who has done all of these tips and who has actually applied them in real life, and I just wanted to share exactly how I did it first. My first job straight out of university was joining a company called Capital One as a business analyst. Now this is a bank in the UK that predominantly do credit cards, although they've dabbled in a few other things as well. And I worked across different functions. I worked in marketing, I worked in credit risk, I worked in various strategy and commercial teams, as well as designing products. So I got quite a broad amount of experience in a relatively short time as a very junior person within the bank. Unfortunately, after a couple years of working in the bank, the company was on the brink. This is immediately after the financial crisis hit and the bank was looking to exit their UK operation. At that time, it didn't actually happen, but that's what they were considering doing at that point in time, and they cut their staff numbers from something like 4,000 to 5,000 people down to just a few hundred. Unfortunately, I was in one of those waves. I was working in the wrong department at the time, where the entire marketing department where I was working was essentially let go in just a few minutes. So we all walked in one regular morning on a regular business day, and we got invites to meetings that were 5 minutes long with our director and an HR employee, and before too long we were walking out with cardboard boxes full of our personal possessions and sitting for the rest of the day in the pub reminiscing about our time at Capital One. Now the job market at the time was really hard. This was shortly after the financial crisis hit. This was at the point when lots of people in banks and financial services companies were being let go by the thousand. There were very few jobs going, but I managed to relatively quickly secure a few offers. And the three best offers that I had to choose from were an analyst at a very reputable financial services organization. I had a different position for a senior analyst, which was a bit further away, at a very well-known bank where I could go and further my career doing exactly the same thing. And then I had a third option, which was to become a manager at an energy company. Now it was considerably less paid than the other two opportunities. It was much further away. I would have to drive 60 miles each way every single day just to be able to go to that job, and it wasn't something that I relatively knew much less about. But it had the upsides of it was a manager position where I could learn a ton of new skills and learn a new industry. So after thinking it over, I went and took that manager role, even though it was considerably less convenient and paid considerably less. So I became an analytics manager at Empower. Empower is one of the biggest UK energy companies, and my job was to run the analytics team, which was responsible for forecasting demand for gas and electricity for any range from tomorrow or later today through to several years out. So we had to go and use various things like weather, various other events and things that were going on to predict exactly how much electricity and gas people would need at any given time. I was just 23 at the time, but I got the opportunity to go and manage a team of analysts. I got to learn how to manage people for the first time in my career. I got to learn all the good things and the bad things about managing people. I got to learn how to delegate tasks. I got to learn how to do all the man management type stuff for the very first time. So there was a huge, very steep learning curve for somebody so young, given that everybody everybody in my team was considerably older than I was, but I got a huge amount of exposure to things that I previously never came close to, and a whole new industry, including things like trading, because the stuff that we were doing directly impacted the trading that the company did in order to ensure that they had enough gas or electricity supplies for any given time period. And I found it extremely useful, even though it was hard. I had to set off from home before 5 a.m. every single day that I was working. I had to then come back very, very late, so it was a very tough period, but it made a hugely important difference. And the important difference is this: by the time the next job change came, I was already an experienced manager with all of those skills, and that meant that I could continue moving upwards rather than only then making the first jump into management. About a year later, a different opportunity came up with Bank of America, and it was a really interesting opportunity for two major reasons. One, it was a more senior position where I could get exposure to not just managing a team, but potentially managing several different teams of people and get the experience of doing that, as well as being able to go back into the financial services industry, which I generally preferred. I generally found it more interesting. I found the nature of the work and the type of stuff that I was working on more interesting, so that was a massive plus. But there was some huge negatives that came with the job as well. The company was based in a place called Chester in the UK, which is about 120 miles from where I lived, so that meant that I couldn't realistically go and drive there every single day. So that meant that I had to spend 5 days away from home every single week just to be able to do that job. So age 24, I went and became a strategy manager at Bank of America. I grew my team over time. It was a really exciting and a really interesting place to work. I actually really personally enjoyed it, but after just over 2 years of working there, I kind of began realizing that the daily grind of being away from home, staying in a small rented room overnight, having absolutely no personal life whatsoever, just wasn't right. So it's time to make a change, and I had to make that change. So I left that role and I went and founded my first startup. My first startup was a really small thing called Lazy Trips. It is a very different thing now if you go and check it out to what I was doing at that time. It was a planner tool and a community for people who like traveling around Europe. I found it very interesting. I got the opportunity at age 25 to experience what working in a genuine one-man startup is like. All the pluses, all the minuses, I got to experience and feel it all. I didn't have any capital, I didn't have any other people working with me, so there was a lot of very difficult days. I had to learn everything that I was doing from scratch at that point in time. But just 6 or 7 months later, everything changed out of the blue. My phone rang and there was an opportunity at a tiny little credit card company that was just acquired by a private equity firm. They were looking to take this tiny little company based in the village in Kent and grow it into a huge credit card company in a very short space of time, and they wanted me to go and help them do that. I found the opportunity absolutely incredible. It would teach me so much stuff, so much more quickly than what I was doing at the time. And so I decided to join. So age 26, I became head of strategy at a small company called SAB Credit that is now called New Day. When I joined, it was a small outfit. There was about 30 people in a village in Kent. That was the entire company, including the front desk staff, including various admin roles. So it was a really very different thing to some of my previous jobs, including working at the biggest bank in the world. As head of strategy, I was responsible for the overall strategy for growing that business. So it was everything from designing the acquisition scorecard, so things that decide which customers get accepted and which ones do not, through to designing new products, various acquisitions that happened during that time, and everything in between. I absolutely loved it. It was really interesting. I learned how you can do massive changes and run massive big programs in a fraction of the time that it would take a big company to do it. The company combined the best bits of being a startup in terms of being very agile, being very quick to do stuff, having very minimal oversight and red tape to break through at that point in time, but also had the benefits of being an established financial services company, having been acquired by a big private equity fund. There was enough funds to be able to finance this growth, and so for the period that I was there, the company was growing at something like 40 to 50% per month in just the customer numbers. By the time I left, the company was doing incredibly well. Their customer numbers are something like 500,000 customers per year. The company earns £100 million per year plus every single year in net profit, and I absolutely loved it. I could deliver incredible results very quickly. I enjoyed my time there immensely, but let me tell you exactly what happened, exactly why I left that business. I met a few directors of a different business called Phones for You in a bar in Soho. It's a very long separate story that maybe I'll tell another day. But anyway, I proceeded to tell them everything I didn't like about their business model. I told them how I would change the business if I was them and the things that I would do differently, and one thing led to another, and I joined the company as a director, aged 28. And I was looking after two different departments. I was looking after the data side of the business and the analytics side of the business. Anyway, that was fun, but I joined that company a little bit too late. Some of the stuff that I was saying that I didn't like about their business model and some of the risks actually came to kill the company just 3 months later. Before I knew it, everyone was walking out of the business with all their possessions in cardboard boxes, and I was one of those people. Now at that point I went and founded my consulting business. I have a whole separate video that I'm going to link in the description below that talks about exactly how I did it, so if you're interested in some of the key takeouts and some of the learnings from that, make sure you go and watch that video after watching this one. But anyway, let's get to the tips. Let's get to the things that help me fast track my career, and I think that can help you fast track your career as well. Number one tip is to always be hungry to learn. I completely do not subscribe to the college is worthless theory that is very, very popular in terms of telling young people that they should avoid the debt and they should not go to university, they should not go and learn stuff. I'm actually of the complete opposite mindset, which is you should always learn. Like a sponge, you should just soak in as much knowledge over your lifetime as possible, because every single thing you learn will make you better. You are investing in yourself, you are improving yourself, you're improving your understanding of concepts. You might think that you understand something, but then you go and learn some other stuff that is in some way relevant to that something that you thought you previously understood really well, and suddenly you learn that you actually didn't understand it as well as you thought. You're able to understand the holistic picture a lot better, so you don't only understand the thing that you work at and your particular skill set, but you also understand what other people around the business do. You will understand how broader companies work, you will understand things about personal finance, you will understand things about other industries, you will gain a lot of random interesting skill sets which can complement each other and help you in ways that you don't even understand at the point at which you're learning them. So I am of the firm belief that you should never stop learning. You can go and read books, you can go and listen to these books, none of that is a very expensive thing to do, and you can absorb and learn so much information. And no, I am not talking about those kind of books. I'm not talking about that kind of book that will teach you a method for getting rich very fast. There's too many of those types of books. Or the book that will tell you that you can go and become wealthy by working just 4 hours a week. Don't subscribe to all the marketing BS out there. Don't go and buy stuff that is popular just because all your friends have read it and you've seen reviews online that tell you that those books are gonna actually help you go and get rich. How many people do you know that go and read these books and actually go and do the stuff that these books preach and then succeed at it? I bet you the answer is not very many, and yet these books sell by the millions. So go and invest in learning actual skills. Want to learn how to make better presentations? Go and learn some graphic design skills. Do you want to understand technology and IT that links to the work that you do better? Go and take up a coding course. It is an incredible amount of value. When I started my professional career, I knew nothing about coding. I've never really done coding in my life before, and I went from that to coding major banking systems for some of the biggest banks in the world just by learning myself. Make sure you avoid the pitfall of going to get certificates for the sake of getting certificates. Nobody cares that you've done a 2-day training course on how to be effective or some other version of it. Go and learn real practical skills that will actually enhance and improve your career. Pick your job based on what you're going to learn in this job and the experience that it's going to give you. Don't pick your job based on the money, based on the convenience, based on the hours, or any of those things. Now, I'm not saying this should apply to every single person. I'm saying if you are looking to fast track your career, that is the decision you should be making. For a lot of people, the answer will be different. If you have commitments and you have family and you have other issues, it might sway your decision making in various different ways, and that's okay. But if your objective is to fast track your career, focus on picking the job that will help you with the next job and the job after that, not the job that will help you personally right now by paying you a bit more money. I've done that multiple times in my personal career. I've taken jobs which would teach me stuff and which would help me get more experience, which were considerably less convenient and paid considerably less because of this very reason. Tip number 3 is relatively quick, and that is stay away from jobs where your progression is based on tenure. Now this sounds incredibly simple, and for some people this just doesn't apply because they have a vocation. They have a particular thing that they have wanted to do since they were a child and they want to do until they retire. But for everybody else, avoid work where your particular skill set, your particular knowledge, your particular experience, and your particular ability to give value is measured just in the number of years that you have given to that particular company or that particular industry. industry. Two really good examples are things like being a lawyer or being an accountant. Sure, in the long term, maybe if you spend 20 or 30 years at the company, you could make partner and you could earn a really good salary. But in the first 10 or 15 or however long years, you are basically measured on how long you've been at the company, first and foremost. Lawyers have job titles like 1 year post-qualified, 2 years post-qualified. Accountants typically go through something like 5 to 7 years of passing a load of exams, getting certified and getting the right number of years of experience before they can go and move up the rungs. It is based in no way on any kind of meritocracy. It doesn't care whether you're any good at your job. You just need to go and sit there for a set number of years, and after that period, you will get promoted to the next set of waiting for the next progression. My fourth tip for progressing your career really fast is to go and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for doing it. If you haven't done so already, please go and do it right now. It is so useful. It is the one super important metric that YouTube uses to try to understand if you actually like this type of video, so they can go and show this video to more people so that this channel can grow and reach more people more quickly. Please go ahead and do it. Subscribe if you're interested in more content on the same topics. Anyway, let's move on to the real number 4. The real number 4 is don't be afraid to change jobs, but don't job hop. And this is a really big one. This is a really important thing. A lot of people find this one really difficult. Some people think that having a tenure of less than 5 years at some particular job on their CV is going to be a massive downside for their career. So they're going to waste 3 or 4 years of their life sitting in a job they don't like, sitting in a job that doesn't give them any opportunity to progress, any opportunity to learn, or any opportunity to personally develop, just because of reasons like that. Some people actually go and do the opposite. Some people will go and change jobs every 3 to 6 months. They'll become a contractor and they'll just keep switching from one quick contract to another, and before long they've got 27 different jobs that span a grand total of 2 years, and they fail to actually learn anything because they have to just keep jumping, keep looking for the next job, keep learning what the new company is like, how they work and all of that kind of stuff, and they never actually learn anything deeper. So you gotta find the middle ground. But when that opportunity comes, when you do need to go and make that move, don't let this tenure question or all of these things that everyone tells you affect your choice. Trust me, getting the right job that is going to teach you the right things and that is going to give you the right level of progression is more important than having one job on your CV that has a shorter tenure than you would have otherwise preferred. My tip number 5 is to always operate at the level that is 2 rungs above your job title. So a lot of people will tell you that you need to go and look the part, you need to go and act and work and basically behave like you are the manager that is managing you. You need to go and become somebody who does everything in a similar way so that people go and consider you as being part of that next level. I have a slightly different philosophy in that I think that you should model your behavior based on the manager of your manager instead. And let me tell you why. First, whenever that promotion opportunity actually turns up, it won't be your manager making that decision in most cases. In many companies, the managers themselves don't make the decision of who should be promoted to become their peer, to essentially get promoted to their level. It will typically be the person one step above making that decision. So you need to go and think and act like that person rather than the manager that is going to be managing you day to day. The second thing is, and I think this one's quite important, by focusing on the person who's relatively senior in an organization and who's running, say, the entire department, you are going to begin thinking about the stuff that is important to them rather than the stuff that might be important to you as an analyst with a very narrow remit. And that means that you can actually focus on your work in a very different way. You can focus on things that are actually important to business or the department, not just your particular work stream. You'll actually, in some cases, do your work differently because you're trying to think, what would that person want as the overall outcome and where does this fit in? And as a result, you maybe will structure your work differently to make it address the overall big picture better, rather than just focusing narrowly on your particular remit and ignoring everything else. My tip number 6 is to do what it takes at all times. Now this is incredibly simple and incredibly important, and it is amazing how many people just ignore this as a basic principle of managing their work, and that is something that will be preventing them from growing as quickly as they could otherwise maybe have done. How often have you heard people say that something is below or above their pay grade? Either the work is too menial or too boring or too uninteresting or whatever, and they're going to try to palm it off onto somebody else, and they're going to spend time trying to find that somebody else and try to get rid of that work because they just don't want to do it. Or they'll say it's above my pay grade, the decisions are being too important, I don't want to take responsibility or accountability for these things, I'm a bit too scared that this is too important, or the decision is too big for me to be making or recommending at the very least. and people will just avoid those things. But if you want to progress, you need to show that you are able to do everything that it will take to get the stuff that you're working on done. If it requires to do several hours of boring, meaningless stuff because it is a necessary component of your overall objective and you have to go and get that stuff done to achieve your overall result, then you have to go and get that boring stuff done. Even if it takes you several days, you have to go and get it done. If you have some tasks set that are impossible, that will take you considerably longer to do than the amount of time you have, then you need to find the time to go and get them done. And I know this goes completely against a bunch of advice out there that a lot of other people will be telling you, that will tell you that you need to be the manager of your own time in all cases, even if you're working for other people. But let me tell you this, if somebody is setting you a task that is difficult, that is very time consuming, and that will take you considerably longer to achieve than the amount of time you have, the likelihood is the person setting you the task knows this. The likelihood is they think that you can achieve it despite everything. The likelihood is they trust you. The likelihood is they have their own pressures. Some of them you might not even be aware of. They might have to go and get things done in shorter timescales than they would otherwise prefer. In any case, you need to go and pull out all the stops every single time. If there's any way to theoretically go and achieve these results, you need to go and achieve them, because that is how you get noticed. That is how people begin relying on you and how people begin thinking, wow, this person is the person that needs to be working at the next level. This is the person who needs to go and get promoted. This is the person who needs to go and get more responsibility and actually go and teach other people in their teams how to work in exactly the same way. Number 7, and I think this one is really, really important, and most people just don't understand how important it is, and that is pay extreme attention to the tiniest presentation details. And I mean this really literally. Whatever work you are doing, if you focus on the tiniest little details of the work that you're doing and make sure every single one of them ends up being right, then the overall thing that you're delivering is going to be that much better. A lot of people just don't care. For example, if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation for work, a lot of people will just go and use whatever basic template that they have. They'll just type in a few words and there'll be stuff misaligned on a piece of paper, and there'll be different fonts used on different pages, boxes not aligned. The presentation will just look like a mess. And let me tell you exactly why this is important. A lot of people say, well, the information is the important bit. All of that presentation stuff is just a waste of time. And the answer is, no, it isn't. If you're wanting to go and push yourself and get yourself noticed, you need to pay attention to the way that you present information, whether that's verbally when you're talking to people, whether that's when you're presenting it in a PowerPoint or Excel or something else. You need to build the trust of the people that are getting the information from you, to trust that the information that you're giving them is correct and accurate. That is how they will then entrust you with more important work. That is how they're going to entrust you with more responsibility over time. And when you go and present this information, if the way that you're presenting it is not polished, if the way that you're presenting it does not scream, I spent several hours making sure that everything in this presentation looks perfect and everything is super neatly aligned, they might just subconsciously not trust the stuff that you're giving them, even if it might be absolutely right and really, really great work. A lot of people just don't care about this. A lot of people ignore anything to do with presentation. They think it's not that important, and to me, it is incredibly important. It is almost as important as the stuff that you're presenting, because that is what builds trust. That is what builds people's confidence in you. That is what builds people's understanding of how good you are at what you do, because they notice that you've paid attention to every single little detail. And if you've paid that much attention to every single little detail, then how much attention must you have paid to the work that you're actually presenting? The answer in their mind is a lot. Their trust in your work, their trust in your ability and your skills will be that much higher. If you're doing some kind of report, make sure that you've answered every potential question that your manager and their manager will have when you're presenting that report. So go and critically think, what might they think when they're reading this, or what kind of questions might they come up with, and then go and answer them just a page or two down from when they might actually ask them. So when they do go and ask that question, you literally have the answer to that question printed, and you can show it to them there and then, instead of doing the usual thing of saying, let me get back to you in a few days when I've had time to go and think about it, or send you an email after the meeting. It shows that you care. It shows that you've thought about it that much more. It is incredibly important. My tip number 8 is to turn major upsets and huge negative events into massive opportunities. This one is unbelievably important. These things will not happen very often. In my career, they probably happened 3 or 4 times, and they probably happen every few years to the average person. It might be something like you go and lose your job because of a redundancy, because your company's gone bankrupt, because the market has forced it. What should you do in that circumstance? You should immediately go and get yourself a better job. Quite often people feel depressed, people feel down about the situation, but you need to go and think about it as an advantage. In many cases, if you weren't pushed at that particular time, you would not consider going and progressing your career, going and getting a better job, going and getting a job that will teach you more. And when that kind of situation happens, you need to go and grab it by the horns and make the most of it, rather than sitting there wallowing about the fact that it happened to you and how unfair the world is. Go and use it as an opportunity to make a step up instead. Sometimes your manager that you really like leaves the organization, suddenly they go and resign and you're not sure exactly what's going to happen to your role. Are you going to go and have to move teams? Are you going to have to go and work for this other manager that you really don't like? Something like that. This is the point when you need to go and make a move. Walk into that manager's office, go and tell them that you are the right guy to lead that team because you've been doing all these other things that I've been talking about in the meantime. Tell them that you have the necessary skills. Tell them that you know exactly how to do it because you've been in that team doing it already. Tell them that you can save them time and money on trying to go and find the next person. Tell them that you can go and start doing the job right away, that very minute, and then see what they say to that. I've actually personally had this happen, and it might seem incredibly daunting. It might seem like absolutely an incredibly bad thing to do, but you're actually potentially saving them a lot of headache. They might not be sure whether you are ready. They might not be sure whether they should look and then consider the different candidate options. In many cases, the manager or the person who's leaving just didn't see it coming, and so they're in a state of uncertainty. You need to go and capitalize on it. If you're genuinely good, if you're genuinely good at your job, you might just be overlooked because they haven't even considered the option of moving you up the rank at that point in time. They might not have just thought about it, or they might have other priorities, and there might be some HR person who just goes and does a backfill on a role because that's what they normally do every single time somebody leaves. Go and seize the opportunity. Tip number 9, do not time your career around arbitrary company deadlines and internal timescales. This is so common. So many people go and do this, and this is what slows people down incredibly in their career progression. People constantly tell themselves that they need to go and sit around because, oh, well, the next promotion is just 8 months away. That's when I'm expecting I might get promoted. My manager hinted that it's a possibility, so I'm going to continue sitting in this job because once I get that promotion, then I can go and begin looking for that next job. Or it's going to be that bonus that gets paid in just 4 months time or 6 months time. Or it's something else. It's something to do with when your project ends and you kind of want to see it out, and then you'll go and move on, and that's only another 7 months worth, or maybe you'll get extended and then it'll be 10 months. Or maybe you're going to be waiting for when the market is good, because there'll be this one time when the market is really good and that'll be the right time. There is always something on the horizon that is telling you that you can go and just keep sitting in the same job without the hope of moving forwards, without the hope of progressing, without the hope of fast tracking your career, because there's something there that's going to happen in 8 months, 10 months, 12 months. Don't focus on those events. Events are not going to help you progress your career. Process and continual improvement will help you progress your career. Events can help you if they're one-off unusual things like what I mentioned in a previous point. But things like going and getting a bonus, that will not help your career. Just because you've gone and wasted a whole year waiting for that bonus to be paid, and then you wasted another 2 or 3 months to wait for the money to actually hit your bank account, it will not improve the prospect of you getting a better job in a year or 2 years time, and it will not help you earn 10 times that bonus in 5 years time. That is what you should be striving for. Last on my list at number 10 is something that is very closely related to the previous point I was making, but a bit different, and that is don't wait for the right personal moment to go and make career choices. That happens again incredibly often. People say, oh well, I'm getting married next year, so I might as well stay in this job until after I get married because I want to have that security, or I want to be able to have that money in place, or whatever it is. And then I'll go and find that job that I really actually want, and maybe it'll take me a few months to find it, but until then I'm going to go and play it safe. Or you might say, oh well, I've only been in this job for just a few months or a year, and personally I've just moved to this location and it feels wrong to go and change things and go and change the direction very fast. I've gone and personally done this. I've got to move continent to a different country, and then other circumstances circumstances meant that I had to go and reverse my decision and change things quickly, and I did. You will look back on it and you will think, how silly was it to go and use that as a genuine excuse to not go and change your career just because you're finding these arbitrary reasons. Maybe you're going to go and wait until your child is born in 7 months and going to go and be ultra cautious and not do anything risk-worthy like going and promoting your career and taking a better job in the meantime. Maybe you're going to wait until your child goes to nursery. Oh no, you need to go and wait for your child to go to school. Wait, you need to go and wait for your child to leave home and go to university. That's when you can go and get your career sorted and actually go and get that job that you actually want to be doing. Don't make your decisions based on these arbitrary reasons. You are making these reasons up in your head to prevent you from taking a risk. And changing a job is a form of risk. There's an element of unknown in it, and that's why people don't like doing it. That's why people are scared of doing it. But if you need to go and do something, if you need to go and change your career, if you need to go and take a different job to go and push yourself further, don't make these the excuses that prevent you from doing so. Stuff happens all the time. Get over it. Stop waiting, start acting.